Jacek, what is soundwalking?
Yes, that's a very broad question, but I will try to answer from kind of two perspectives, from my own and from perhaps what is kind of more generally considered soundwalking. So, to quote Hildegard Westerkamp, one of the pioneers of that practice, basically soundwalk is any kind of excursion into an environment which is motivated by us listening to it, whether we do it with or without technologies, whether we do it on our own or in a group. And the point of soundwalking is to connect or reconnect us with environment, with how it sounds at the very moment. It kind of reaches sense of immersion in the here and now. And now my approach to soundwalking is slightly different. I treat soundscapes as kind of gateways to not only the momentary, the way that the sound expresses itself in the moment, or the sound expresses events that happen at the moment, but also as gateways into the past and into the future. So I like to kind of expand a little bit the perspective of soundwalking and use it as a kind of a vehicle to move us between different scales, between different temporalities, and between different standpoints, or different angles from which we can engage in this act of connecting with environment. And the way I do it is by, of course, encouraging people to listen with whatever listening capacities they have, but also through technologies. And as a scholar in media and communications and person interested in technological developments within kind of sonogram, I'm trying to treat technologies as our companions rather than enemies or something that is alien to our human nature, and try to build kind of organic synergies between the way we implement technologies in our lives and in our ways of understanding nature around us.
And all the ethical ramifications of
exactly.
that.
And there are, of course, ethical ramifications. So I like to call my approach to soundwalking as kind of a kind of transversal listening or hybrid listening, where basically listening becomes like a vector that cuts through different layers of the environment in a kind of geological material sense, but also in a temporal sense. So as we stand here, for example, we're not standing only here in this particular geography, but we are at the same time kind of benefiting from other geographies that surround us, and we can actually hear, right, for instance, the air traffic, and through that sound we can connect with very distant geographies in a kind of most direct sense, the geographies from which those planes arrive or are kind of destined to. But we can also think of the plants around us as some of them are not necessarily native to this geography, right? They come from somewhere else. They pertain to different histories of, for instance, colonization, and so on. And the same applies to temporalities. The sounds we hear today are here for some reason, right? They have their roots in other events, other sonic events that might not be directly accessible to us. And thus also, this is also why I like to encourage imagination as a kind of natural component to soundwalking and listening, and to enable kind of more speculative approach to how we listen. So instead of really trying to dissect and understand all the sounds around us, like to also think more imaginatively what kinds of sounds existed here before we stepped into that environment, and what kind of sounds might exist in the future, also because of our actions at the very moment.
Well, we're doing a sound walk now. You're mostly talking about sound walking, but it's an experience, and I've done it over the years, and I encourage my listeners to do it because it's a very rewarding practice, and it's one you can do anywhere, anytime. So before we run out of time, what would be a good question for people to ask themselves or to keep in mind as they sound walk?
I think one important question would be, what is my position within the soundscapes that I'm walking through? How do I approach the soundscape? What kind of associations kind of dominate my way of experiencing it, for instance, and start basically there, and then trying to maybe gradually leave that zone and consider other ways of positioning ourselves in the soundscapes, and by doing that, kind of acknowledging the possibilities of other, perspectives on the soundscapes and other ways of understanding and coexisting with it.
In other words, what is my position in listening?
Exactly.